In this presentation, we'll take a look at major lists within QuickBooks Online. Now, when you hear the term list, this is going to be something that is often used within QuickBooks Online. It's another one of those examples where we need to know the terminology, one, of bookkeeping and accounting in general, and two, from the users of QuickBooks as well. It's just like if you're going to use some other type of application, some type of software such as Microsoft Word, you want to know the terminology so you can communicate with other people, such as what the ribbon is on the top and the groups and whatnot within Microsoft Word, so you can kind of tell people how to navigate around certain things. Same thing is going to be true with QuickBooks. When you're dealing with an accountant that has a degree in accounting or has learned accounting from school, then you need to know the terminology they're going to be dealing with, such as accounting terms and debits and credits possibly, and the types of accounts that are going to be included. And then you need to go to the software, such as the software for QuickBooks. And if you're talking to someone who has learned accounting through QuickBooks, they're also going to be using terminology that's kind of, some of it's accounting terminology, some of it's software, and some of it's kind of in between somewhere. And the lists are going to be one of those types of things. That they're going to be things within users of QuickBooks may list things under the term lists, partially because there was a drop down in the desktop version, the old version of QuickBooks, that had lists within it. And then the online version has a section that includes the lists as well. So here we are in Craig's Design and Landscaping, our practice file, the test drive file. I'm going to jump on over to the desktop version because that's where the list or the term lists have started from. You'll see we have in the desktop version these drop downs up top. This is similar to what you might have seen in Microsoft Word before like 2003, if there's, if you had Microsoft Word at that point, where you had the drop downs before they had the ribbon. And then one of those drop downs where they decided to group things is lists. So therefore, these items under lists may not be basically an accounting term. If you talk to someone that is working or learning accounting from school, they're probably not going to be calling the chart of accounts a list or a grouping of a list type of account. But when you think about QuickBooks users, oftentimes that will be the case because that's where they were housed, right? They're housed under the term lists. So these are the kind of things, these are going to be some major building block type of things that are going to be major types of lists. And the big one's going to be the chart of accounts, and then we have the item lists. Now, there's a little bit of terminology change from the item list here to the QuickBooks Online, which is going to be the products and services. So the online version, actually, the terminology is a little bit more straightforward, really, than the QuickBooks Desktop. So just realize that when you go to the online version, when you talk about items, let's say in the desktop version, when you're talking about items, then you're often talking about the service items and the product items that we use to create the invoice. And when we go to QuickBooks Online, they're going to be named something else, product and services, which is going to be a more straightforward name. Let's take a look at that now. We're going to go over to QuickBooks Online, and there's a few different ways you can get into these different items, but the lists itself is going to be over here in this cog. So we have the lists, and then you could go to all lists. The major list being the product and services here. That's the one that we're talking about, that we talked about that changed in terms of the terminology from the desktop version, which it used to be called the items. Okay, so I'm going to go to the lists up top. Let's go to lists, all lists. And the major list we want to be aware of is the chart of accounts. Now, you'll recall we got to the chart of accounts down below as well by going to the accounting and then the chart of accounts and then the products and services lists. So when you think about those two main items, they may be housed under the category for QuickBooks users under lists. We took a look at the chart of accounts before. You could go to the chart of accounts in this format from this location through the lists. Then we want to see the chart of accounts. And there we have our chart of accounts, basically a listing of the accounts that will be used. They will be used to generate our financial statements, our balance sheet, and our profit and loss report. Typically, you want to understand the chart of accounts to be in order by the account type. I'm going to go back into our lists up top. We're going to go into our cog up top. Let's go into the all lists. The other main list that you want to keep aware of is going to be the product and services. So we went into the product and services in another way as well by going to the sales tab. But you can also find them from the lists, and users of QuickBooks Desktop may be more comfortable with that way of getting in here. So remember, these are the same things as the items in the QuickBooks desktop. So when you go to the QuickBooks desktop, lists up top, and you go to the item list, then you had the list of things that basically you sell generally, and that would be inventory items and service items. Those are going to be the major components. Here now they're going to be under the items of product and services. Now these are going to be really important. We talked about these and we looked at these in a prior presentation as well, but these are really things that are important and are understood by many users of QuickBooks, because many times both of these types of lists are not understood well, the general ledger or this product and service lists, the item lists, because they're already set up by the time you start using the system. And by the time you start using it, if you came into it after it's been set up already, then you're making invoices with the use of the lists and posting them to the chart of accounts already without having to have set them up, and the data input is set up pretty straightforward. So what you really want to do is start something from scratch, which we will do in our practice problem, and that way you get to see the building blocks, what actually, what is behind the invoice, while the lists items are what really make the invoice able to be populated in a very simple way and able to generate what happens to the financial statements is driven by, the product lists and the service lists. So those are the two major lists. We've looked at them before, but you want to just understand that terminology of lists.